we never did market testing. I don't believe in kind of too much market testing. I would rather launch a product, see what happens. You know, you can spend 30 grand on market testing, or you can spend 15 grand on launching a product, actually see what happens.
More cost effective.
Yeah. So I think that's a much better thing to do. If anyone is listening who wants to start up a business, if you can provide an amount of value to that business that the business wouldn't be able to afford. So Pooch Mutt, when I started, wouldn't have been able to afford my kind of brand knowledge and my brand strategy knowledge. So I think being able to add that value gives you that kind of exponential help that you wouldn't get elsewhere.
Hello and welcome to Inspired Sounds, Rathbones' exclusive podcast dedicated to supporting and empowering entrepreneurs. In each episode, we dive into the journey of inspirational entrepreneurs and founders who we invite to share the thrills and spills of their own journey. We hope you enjoy listening.
Hello and welcome to Inspired Sounds. I'm Rebecca Tunstall. Today I'm joined by Guy Blaskey of Pooch Mutt. Guy, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
To kick off, it would be really great to hear a little bit more about your story. How did you come up with the idea of Pooch Mutt?
So there's two versions. There's two versions of the story. I'm always a bit dubious of founder stories because they always tend to be, I was looking for this product and I couldn't find it and I had to make it. And that tends to be in categories where there definitely is those products and they do exist and everyone's lying. There's the two versions of the story. One is I was working in marketing and I was a bit fed up of using my skills for other people's brands in my head, and I thought I would much rather use my skills myself and kind of put my money where my mouth is and kind of build my own brand. And the other bit of the story is at the same time, my dog Cookie was diagnosed with hip dysplasia. My mum has a horse health supplement company, and we were treating Cookie with a horse joint supplement, and it worked really well. So it was like the confluence of those two things was, right, let's kind of put them together and make a dog product based on the horse formulations. And that's kind of where it started. And then it kind of grew from there. And I'm very much similar to what I'm doing in my new project, D-Trash. I'm very much I think people should just get started. I value business plans very highly, but I value higher this thing which is kind of called make a plan to make a plan. And I think quite often people get stuck in plans and stuck in fundraising and stuck in I want to do this and I want to do this when they've never sold anything, don't know about the market, never spoken to a customer, never got a product made. And I'm a bit of a believer of just get started, do something, and then make a plan a few months later when you've kind of got some experience and know what you're doing.
And is that very much what you did with Pooch Mutt? Started small locally?
Yeah, and Pooch Mutt was under 300,000 turnover for at least kind of 3-4 years, and then kind of understanding the market. And then it was like, what was missing from the market? You know, by then I'd been to Crufts 4 times. I'd sold some products. I kind of knew a little bit more, and then I could grow it. And then I had the opportunity to kind of come up with the right ideas that would grow it and know that they would work. So yeah, it very much started small. And, you know, and then after that, it's like, we had some really great, especially towards the end of my time, I left in December, and I left it in very capable hands with a team that I'd kind of grown and developed, and I would like them to say nurtured. But, you know, it was like, oh, we've done, you know, this month we did more than we did in our first year. And then it was like this week we did more than we did in our first year. And then we started doing in a day more than we did in our first year. And I do a bit of kind of coaching and mentoring and investing, and I think that people need to spend a bit longer getting on the basics, getting the fundamentals right. And then you can get that kind of exponential growth because you have good foundations.
There's no such thing as an overnight success, hey?
No, but a lot of people think there is.
Yeah.
And a lot of business
Here's
plans.
hard work.
Yeah, lots of business plans assume that it will happen.
Because of what you actually produce, can I ask, is there any product that you made that was just an out and out disaster?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And there should be, like, people should do stuff and they should fail. The one I loved it, and it's actually a really good product. It was a supplement called Slim and Tonic, which was just a great name as a weight loss supplement. And it did really work, but people couldn't get, and maybe it would change now actually with kind of in a Ozempic world, but people couldn't get their heads around the idea of using a supplement to lose weight for a dog. They were like, exercise more, feed less. And I could go on about this for a very long time, but that calorie model is totally wrong. It's proven to be wrong when too many people talk about it. It's a whole other subject. But yeah, that was it was pretty much a disaster. But also, I mean, it was a disaster. Like, we always kind of test and learn. So,
Yeah.
So we made some, we probably spent $3,000 making it and it didn't work. And, we sold some, so probably lost about $2,000. And I'm very much in the kind of camp of, we never did market testing. I don't believe in kind of too much market testing. I would rather launch a product, see what happens. You can spend $30,000 on market testing, or you can spend $15,000 on launching a product, actually see what happens for real.
More cost effective.
Yeah. So I think that's a much better thing to do. And, I always point to things like Apple's game console that no one remembers. Like, people don't remember failures. Like, people are worried about, like, failing, but no one remembers as long as you learn from them and you actively try to learn from them, and you kind of see things as, when we launch stuff, we never launched it to be, this is the product that's going to be on the shelf in 50 years. We launched it to see if it could be the product to be on the shelf in 50 years. And if it wasn't, we could kill it. And if it was, then we could develop it.
And I imagine actually as a sole founder, it's quite a lonely journey. And again, you're making these leaps as you did with that product, not really knowing what the outcome will be. Can you talk to me a little bit about the team that you surrounded yourself with and how you think they contributed to your success in terms of having someone to bat ideas off with?
So at first, that was very hard. And actually, I went through 4 or 5 kind of failed sale and investment processes before I got, to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So, and there's 2 ways to answer it, because actually there's a personal team. I actually kind of started going to a therapist every week because I didn't want to talk to my team about the problems that I was having, because they're looking, to me to be the kind of inspirational leader, especially at that point when I had quite a junior team. You can't share those, so it's actually quite good to have somebody to share it with. And I did quite a lot of work on separating my identity from the brand. And I think especially, and I have this now a bit, but I try not to, but as a solo founder and as a young solo founder, and as someone who doesn't take criticism very well, and someone who was kind of designing the packaging, doing the marketing, formulating products and everything, it can be very hard to split you from the brand. And I could go to a sales meeting and pitch 5 products and they'd take 4 and they'd say something about the other one. And I would take that really personally and not walk away going, brilliant, I've got 4 products listed. I'd be like, why didn't they like that one? I put a load of work into it. So that's one way of answering the question, is kind of outside of work. The other way, I got very lucky. So after the first failed sale process. I had lunch with my accountant, and I kind of said, oh, in the process we were going to get someone on the board. I kind of feel like I need a mentor. He suggested someone, and I was like, no, I don't need that. I don't need a marketing person. I can do that. I need someone who knows what I don't know. And he suggested someone called Nick, and he was like, this is who you need, but he'll never do it. And I met Nick, and actually he did. And he came into our office kind of every week, every Tuesday for a couple of years. And he taught me how to set up a management team and who's on the management team, and was very clear that the business breaks into sales as one thing, marketing as one thing, potentially e-commerce as a separate thing, which could be in sales depending on your setup. It is accounts and it is operations. And those are the areas of every single business. And they vary to different degrees on what's more important and what's less important. But he was very clear, it's not about getting the best people in the company into a management meeting. It's about getting representatives of each of those areas into your management team. And then he was very clear. I mean, he thought I was brilliant at delegating, whereas I thought I was really good at getting out of the way and just letting him talk to the team. And he would tell them the reports that they needed to produce and that they presented to us and help them produce them. And actually that structure is, I mean, massively instrumental in getting us through COVID, but also instrumental in, you know, the business went quite quickly from 5 to 30 million. And actually having that structure was extremely critical in enabling that to happen and having that team. And then within that team over the last, it's also developed a lot, which is a long story, but, you know, 2 people in that team. I went to Cranfield on the Cranfield Business Growth Program, and then I sent 2 of the team to Cranfield to do their MBAs there. So there was a lot of developing that team as well, and pushing that team to grow.
And, you know, for any business owners that are listening, going from 5 to 30 is an enormous growth. I think most people would be, you know, to love to see themselves as well. What do you credit that success to? If you could give like 2 or 3 examples.
Cash and people, honestly. So I always knew we could do it. I think in a product business, especially when you are dealing with supermarkets, cash flow is really hard, because if you double your business, you double your debtors. So you double the amount of cash you need for your debtors, and you double your stock holding. So even if you're profitable, you run out of cash. So I always thought, I don't think you can, in a product business that deals with retail, there are 3 items. There's profitability, cash flow, and growth. And I don't think you can actually do all 3 yourself. Like, you need, if you want to get high growth, you actually kind of need cash from external sources. I think it's, unless you have incredible margins, in which case someone's going to come and steal a business anyway. It's really hard to manage both. So one thing was getting, you know, doing the deal that I did, which was a staged exit, which enabled us to have cash and kind of just unlock everyone, you know, unlock the company's potential, the brand potential, and all the people's potential. And then it's just getting the right people that can do it. And actually, you know, I've heard a million people say this, but you get to a certain size and you're effectively, your job is recruitment and management. And I was lucky that I recruited a very good management team, and then got them to do the subsequent recruitment. So yeah, you need the people, you need the cash.
And you know, as you've alluded to, you have sold the business. In your mind, what was the trigger point for selling? Was it that you just felt that you couldn't grow anymore because of the cash requirement? Was there a particular thing, or had you set out at the beginning knowing that you had, you know, this runway and there was a line?
No, so I have friends that have, you know, gone, right, I'm going to set up a business, I'm going to grow it, and I'm going to sell it in 5 years, I'm going to follow this model. And I didn't know that model existed. Kind of when I started, it was all kind of organic. And then we got to kind of like, we were too old for EIS, but too small for not EIS. So we couldn't raise money that way. And then we were kind of too small for PE, but too old for VC. And kind of it would be really easy to do it now. It is easy to do it now because you kind of know who needs what and why. Yeah. That definitely wasn't the case. It doesn't even place to the case. So a lot of it was kind of retrofitting where we were with kind of an organically growing business to get it into the right model. I mean, we had to start. I had to get money basically into the business. I couldn't. The business couldn't afford the cash flow needs of the business. The profitability couldn't afford the cash flow needs of the business at all. And I think that's pretty much the case of every FMCG brand. So I kind of had to sell, and I kind of wanted to. I know the numbers are different in every business, but I really enjoy kind of the startup, like getting everything right phase, and the pressure of that and the fun of that. I don't necessarily enjoy I enjoy the growth phase, and it was nice to, it was nice when we did do the deal that I didn't have to have calls with my accountant of like, we need to kind of buy stock or pay people, but we can't do both.
Yeah.
And I got away from that and kind of got to do the bits that I was good at, the kind of product development and brand development bits that I was good at, and the strategic bit. So it was nice to get away from that. But yeah, I enjoy the early stage bit. It becomes too much corporate people management. And I think we tried to avoid that as much as we could, but it still happens.
So unusually for the people that we talk to here, you didn't take a break. You haven't sailed off into the sunset. You've gone straight back in. So Guy, just tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
Well, the truth of it is that actually, I think it was a Harvard study. I hate people who go, there's a study that shows this, but there was some kind of Harvard study that showed like happiness in retirement is based on having other people that retire at the same time. It's basically based on having playmates that you can hang out with, because you replace your workmates with your playmates. So anyone who thinks, great, I'm going to retire at 46, you pretty quickly find out there's not many other people that have retired at 46 to hang out with. So
I was bored.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of I was bored, and I liked it. I like the puzzle of solving, that comes with starting a business and solving a business. I had this idea that I wanted to do some good in the world, and to quote Liam Neeson in Taken, I have a certain set of skills, and I felt that my certain set of skills would be better used to grow a new business that could do some good in the world. And D-Trash is, on one level, it's a watch company, but on a better level, it's a company that demonstrates how you can use eco-friendly materials in the world, and how things that are being made non-eco-friendly can easily be made better eco-friendly. And highlighting, great materials that can be used in great organizations like 1% for the Planet that we're part of, and then how business can be a force for good, like working with Surfers Against Sewage. And so it's kind of a vehicle to do that. And it's also like a lot of fun. Like today, you talk about sailing off into the sunset and retiring. Like if I go through my day today, I had an email this morning from the people working with Laird Hamilton about trying to get him involved, which would be really cool because he's quite an inspirational guy. I had a call with the guys that used to run the Extreme TV channel about doing like an ad of like mountain bikers testing shock absorbency of the watches. did a bike workout, did an ice bath, came and chatted, walked the dog, came and chatted to you guys. After this,
Living the dream, Guy.
I'm picking up my daughter and taking her and her friend to dancing, and there's a driving range next to where she goes dancing, and the 5 guys that do really good chocolate milkshakes. So it's not, it's not like I've gone back into hard graft.
I do think you're underselling yourself, because I do know that you have put in a lot of work in terms of the creation of the brand in the first instance. But it does.
Yeah, but I like that. That's like, honestly, so we've got 7 watches out at the moment. I've designed thousands. I can sit and design watches all day. It's like my happy place. And I find that fascinating, because one of the things that we talk about with people is, do you think that the key to success of any business is passion? Like finding something that you really enjoy, and of course it will become work. But do you think that is one of the contributors to success in a business? So I think first time round with Pooch Mutt, I think one of the key drivers of something is or if anyone is listening who wants to start up a business, if you can provide an amount of value to that business that the business wouldn't be able to afford. So Pooch Mutt, when I started, wouldn't have been able to afford my kind of brand knowledge and my brand strategy knowledge at all. And equally, D-Trash now couldn't afford to pay a designer to design 1,000 watches and only use 6 of them. So I think being able to add that value gives you that kind of exponential help that you wouldn't get elsewhere. And I kind of advise entrepreneurs to be like, well, what are you really good at? Where do you add the value? Because then you can bring the value into the business. But the passion bit's interesting, because I obviously over 16, 17 years of Pooch and Mutt, it can go up and down. And my dog's on the floor, so I've got to be careful what I say. But like, I like dogs. Like, I like my dog. Not that bothered about everyone else's dogs, but I like my dog. But a lot of people go into the dog business as like, I'm a dog lover and are really passionate about that. And I, through a lot of kind of self-examination, I was passionate about growing a business and the challenge of growing a business, and about growing a team and giving people an opportunity, like giving people an opportunity to kind of prove themselves and to grow. And also people that kind of, some of them who probably wouldn't have flourished in a big corporate environment as much as they did in the kind of environment that we set up. So there's different ways of kind of looking at the passion behind it, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the passion for what you're doing every day, but like, I like the problem solving bit of a business. And I am what people call autodidactic, which is somebody who likes to learn, but doesn't really like to be taught. And someone told me to read Susan Cain's book, Quiet, which is about the power of introverts. And actually that made quite a big effect on kind of how we set up the company. And, in the end, we're a 60 plus company, 30 million turnover company that is fully remote. But actually there's quite a lot of people that don't want to be in an office and don't want to get promoted by being the loud, funny person in the office, and actually should be valued on the quality of their work, and not even the quantity of their work, just the results that they get. So I was very keen on I had a passion about growing that kind of people and that kind of company, and giving people good opportunities.
And just looking at the differences between the business world when you started Pooch and Mutt and the world around you now, what would you say are the biggest differences between setting up your first business rather than your second in the environment that we're in?
So people can complain as much as they want about the environment that we're in, but it is so easy. I mean, you can set up a shop on Shopify in seconds. I get an order on Shopify. Unlike I had to code webs. I had to kind of teach myself a bit of coding when we first set up. I was going to the post office. I had to store stuff. It was really hard to manage. Now I have kind of a load of stock at home in a cupboard. I get an order on Shopify, I have a label printer next to me, I stick it on an envelope. My 5-year-old daughter sticks it in an envelope for me with the label on. I can drop that off at the Tesco up the road when I go and pick up some lunch, and every people will pick it up and take it out. It's phenomenally easy. And then on the sourcing side, it's much easier, with the likes of, not that we've used AliExpress or whatever, but if you wanted to start a business, you could, or you can contact people on LinkedIn and you can find suppliers on LinkedIn, which is actually how I ended up doing it. I found a material that I wanted to use on someone's website, got in touch with them, they recommended a supplier that could work with their material. So it's just easier. It's so easy. It was much harder first time around.
I always think when I talk to you is that your philosophy is just give it a go, just try. I think that's a great philosophy and a bit different than what we normally hear.
Well, I think so. You can try something and succeed. People look at it as you can try something and succeed, or you can not. You can try something and fail, or you can not try something. But not trying something and trying something and failing is the same result. So you may as well try it and fail, or
and learn
at least, and learn something, or give yourself that chance that you might succeed, and also go into it like, what I'm doing at D-Trash, I don't expect the business and the products or anything in 10 years will look like it does today. I just don't believe that people. I don't know. I don't think that many people who have successful businesses have a successful business in the exact image they had in their head on day one. Like, it's all about learning and evolving. And it should be. And I watched a show on Sky about David Frost and Muhammad Ali the other day. And Muhammad Ali gave him a note, and it said something like, if you believe at 50 what you believed at 20, then you've wasted 30 years of your life. And it is that thinking of like, you're not going to get it right. Like, don't try and get it right. Try and learn and grow, and put yourself in a position to grow. And without being like a Hallmark card, like it is the journey. Like, you do it, and it's the same as, again, I'm not going to quote the study, but there's a big study on like Olympic gold medalists who get depression.
Oh yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, there's so many people, when I was at Cranfield, you get all these talks of kind of entrepreneurs who've done it. And a lot of people do it for the money. They sell out, they get the money, and they're like, oh, great. A year later, they're depressed and they don't know what to do. They've lost all their contact with people that they had. They've lost the drive that got them up in the morning because, it's not that fun, So I'm a big believer in kind of the journey and the game behind it rather than the result.
So the future for you, Guy, you and D-Trash, tell me a little bit about where you think that will be in 5 years' time.
That's something I'm working on now. I think the difference in the watch world versus the dog food world is there's a concept called mimetic desire, which is people want things because other people want things. And that's kind of why celebrity endorsements work. So I feel like it needs some kind of, we did actually have a couple of celeb endorsements of Pooch and Mutt, but we paid a lot for them. Not that they weren't genuine, I need to add, because they very much were genuine.
We can cut that.
No, that's fine. No, keep going. But yeah, I think in a watch business, you do need that. And actually one of the things that you're up against, because I have spoken to kind of some agencies, the big watch companies have huge budgets. So that's one side of it. So I need to kind of work on how to approach that, and I really like the what Roger Federer has done with On, or Ryan Reynolds has done with Aviation Gin. I like the celebrity investor model, because obviously I'd have to pay, and they give me money, which would be nice. I think that's a great model to work to. And also I'm interested in doing some collaborations. I really want to do a collaboration with Garmin, actually. I've got an idea of how I could do a watch with Garmin that would work really well. And I also think there's an opportunity kind of outside. I don't necessarily see D-Trash as just a watch brand. I think there are lots of products that could be made with more eco alternative materials. So, if we could do, like, we're working at the moment with a company that makes a leather out of Budweiser's spent grain from beer, which is really cool.
That is cool.
So I could see D-Trash working with a leather goods company using that kind of material instead of leather, and it becomes a, Aspinall times D-Trash approach, where, we get a lot of grief for the name, but it's supposed to be you love it or you hate it, which I'm fine with. But actually, if you saw a kind of times D-Trash on a high-end good wallet, like an Aspinall wallet, you'd kind of get that it was made out of some kind of trash material. The name gives it that. So I really like that as an opportunity.
I do actually have one more question. Do you find that you've found a lot of synergies? Because obviously you've changed industry. From dog food to watches. Do you find that there are a lot of synergies in terms of the learnings that you've brought from your previous business, or have you had to start again in many ways in terms of learning about a new marketplace?
So there's a lot the same in that, you find a supplier that you can work with, that you can make a product with. That's working with a third-party supplier, whether it's a dog food factory or a watch factory, it's still similar. You're still sourcing products. You still need to be looking at margins. You still need to be looking at accounting. I've chosen to go pretty much D2C only because of it makes it easier. Effectively, Pooch Mutt ended up almost being three businesses, like an Amazon business, a D2C business, and a retail business. So that's definitely simplifying things. And it definitely simplifies things to have, a £400 product that fits in an envelope rather than a 10-kilo bag.
Less storage.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were at 4,000 odd pallets at Pooch Mutt. Whereas, and even my first Pooch Mutt order was about 40 grand. And that was like 30 pallets worth. And my first D-Trash order was about 40 grand. And that's like 4 boxes that I can stick in a wardrobe at home. So there's definitely learnings. And then, as I've said this to loads of people, and it sounds ridiculous, but when about 10, 15 years ago, when Pooch Mutt was getting going, there was a massive growth of small independent pet food brands kind of taking on the establishment. And there was Pooch Mutt, obviously, and Barking Heads, and Lily's Kitchen, and Tails. And there's been a whole growth of them. And then those are the ones that kind of haven't necessarily died. There were lots of that tried and failed as well. And it is a marketplace where you have really, really keen kind of early adopters, like the Crufts types and the breeders, who make up a very small percentage of the market, but are quite influential to the market. Real kind of geeks around what they feed their dogs, who go to dog shows. And then you have the mass market that kind of feeds off that, but isn't massively related to that. And watches are weirdly exactly the same. I did 12 years of Crufts every year, and then was so happy to never do a trade show again. And then randomly on the same weekend, on the second weekend of March, there is the British Watch and Clockmakers Alliance show, which I did this weekend, which is...
You're back to the trade shows.
And I was back to being at a trade show, complaining about my feet, talking to customers, but I feel you could do it. So I was there this weekend, and, you know, it's the same person, not the same person, but it's the same type of person that was questioning kind of what was the omega-3 content of my dog food is now questioning kind of what's the movement you're using in your watch. So it has an incredible amount of parallels, and there's a whole movement in the watch industry of these small micro brands, these small, and especially British micro brands. There's some incredible kind of micro brands on there. Some are growing, some are doing really well, some are definitely not going to do that well, some are really different, we are driving kind of a change in the industry from lots of different angles, in the same way that the dog food companies were versus kind of the Mars and Pedigree dog foods 10, 15 years ago. We're the only one pushing it from an ethical angle, which I find
surprising,
incredible. I mean, I kind of advise people that an ethical should never be the number one bit of your brand. It should always be kind of the number 2 or 3, because everyone can copy it, and it's kind of, it should be a given. And especially, like, I'm in a big FMCG WhatsApp group, and if you look at, you know, the cleaning market used to be Flash and now it's Method, and the chocolate used to be Dairy Milk and now it's Tony's Chocolonely, and that goes all throughout the whole supermarket. And every FMCG brand that launches is either a B Corp or joined 1% of the planet or does ethical sourcing or all of the above. And you look at the watch industry, and this is why I started, because I tried to buy a watch to celebrate selling Pooch and Mutt, and I was like, why doesn't this exist? Like, it's weird. It's so weird that it doesn't exist. It's way easier to do.
So this time you found a hole and filled it.
Yeah. Unfortunately. But it wasn't like a desperate need. I mean, it's not like the world desperately needs another watch. No, the other thing, actually, the other, as well as filling the need, the other bit that I find quite interesting about this is I bought a pair of Tom's shoes when they first came out, and everyone bought Tom's shoes, in my opinion, is this way to look like a good citizen of the world. The shoes were crap, really, as a pair of shoes, but the whole, like, I'm buying a pair of shoes and giving a pair of shoes to someone else and bringing in a charity model makes people look good. People do it to look good. And then when I look at watches, there's definitely, like, you can buy a Rolex and be like, oh, look at me, I'm really successful. Look how much money I've got. But I don't think that's the image that people increasingly want to put into the world of themselves. I think people want to put an image of, look at me, I'm a good citizen. I'm like a good citizen of the planet. And especially for guys, there's not many ways of putting that image across. There's not many things that you can buy that gives you, that change how you put your image across. And a watch is a very key thing. Watches, little bit clothes like Patagonia, potentially trainers like Veja. So it seems so glaringly obvious that is something that should be done. And it kind of just annoyed me that it didn't. It's not like, I really needed to get an eco-friendly watch and there wasn't one out there. It was more like, why isn't there one out there? Like, it's really stupid that there isn't. And surely people would want it. And I kept talking about, and basically what happened was I kept talking to people about it. And then it was like, I don't even say this. My friend's got has a phrase that he says, you're all fart and no poo. I was trying to think of the friendly version of that, but I think at some point when you talk about something, if I talk about something enough, I have that phrase in my head, and it's like I've actually just got to go on and do it instead of talking about it. So I talked about it enough that I thought it'll be fun to do it.
I mean, Guy, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Please don't have like all fart and no
coming.
poo as like the quote of the day.
I really feel that that's what we should lead with in this podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed listening and watching. Tune in next time for our next exciting guest on Inspired Sounds. This has been Rebecca and Guy. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed listening and watching. To tune in and meet our next exciting guest in the Inspired Sound series, press the follow and subscribe button. Goodbye.